Good morning from beautiful Swanage. My God, it was a gorgeous morning. It is a gorgeous morning, and it was a gorgeous sunrise too. Now, I'm at the start of a few days down here in Dorset, and I'm going to be going around scouting some locations for a workshop that I hope to run either in the autumn or next spring. And it's also an opportunity to try out my new Canon R5, which I picked up just the other day. So over the next series of videos, I am going to be testing out this camera and visiting various locations around Dorset and showing them to you. So stay tuned. Now, ordinarily here in Swanage, the thing to photograph is the old Swanage pier and the new pier, which is over here. But unfortunately, you can't photograph it at sunrise because the pier, the main pier, the new pier, is not open. And in which case you can't actually get access to either the new pier or the old pier. So it kind of puts sunrise shoots out. During the week, it opens at 9, and the weekends it opens at 7. Now, I'm here in April, and both those times are too late, really. So really the best time to come and do that is more in the winter and at the weekends when it opens earlier. But still, instead, I came to another pier a little bit further down called the Banjo Pier, the old cobbled Banjo Pier. This old Banjo Pier is a lovely old pier, and often overlooked, I think, by photographers, because I never knew about this at all until last night when I went to do some research on the area. Now, I use PhotoHound, which is a really great app for finding photography locations. I'll put a link down in the description to it. But when I read about this area, the photographer there who was writing the guide also mentioned this old Banjo Pier. And what he mentioned too was that during the summer months, or from April onwards through the summer into autumn, the sun rises out to sea. So it's a perfect sunrise location, and that's exactly what I come for here this morning. Now, I came just before sunrise and got a nice shot of the pier here with the pre-sunrise glow. Now, I'll stick a image of that up now. But for the moment when the sun came up over the horizon, I went a little bit further down here to photograph now one of the groynes. So if we look down this way, you've got the lovely beach and you've got all these groynes here. So I went over to the second groyne and I took some shots of the beach with the water. It's nice and wet, the tide's going out now, so it was nice and wet there, and there was some lovely colour reflected in the wet sand and the groyne itself, and then the sun coming up over the horizon. Now, the thing is, you can't be in two places at once, and I wasn't sure if the sun would come up in the right position for me to get it on the pier. So I ran over there and I got some shots. Now I stick some of them up there now. And then when I did see where it was coming up, I come back over here and I saw that the sun was coming up in the right position and I could get it in my composition. So I got a couple of shots of it with the sun much higher. And now I know that it's going to come up in the right location. Hopefully I will come back here in the next few days and get a shot of the moment the sun comes up over the horizon. Now, it's nice here, but it's also really nice over there. So you can't be in two places at once and you have to choose. So I chose that one this morning. I got some really, really great shots of that. So now I'll come back another day and I'll get some shots here of the sun coming up over the pier. So now the sun's come up high, I've come a bit further down the pier and I'm going to try to get a shot of the sun right in line with the pole here at the end. And I'm using the pole to diffuse the intensity of the sun because the sun is quite high. So I've got it right behind, and now I'm going to use a really small aperture to try to get a bit of a starburst, a sunburst around it. trick is to position the camera and the sun just in the right place for this shot. I'm going to move back a bit now, this time to position the sun right behind that little basket at the top of the pole. Not quite sure what these things are supposed to do. Right in the middle, that's nice. That's nice. Always got to be adjusting the composition as the sun moves. That's nice, I like that. Something a bit different. Doesn't always have to end when the sun gets up high. Sometimes you can look for some creative ideas and creative compositions. Try for an upright one this time. Well, in stark contrast to that beautiful morning I had at the other pier over there, today is thick cloud, really ferociously windy and very, very cold. And here I am on the new pier in Swanage, the one I pointed out to you earlier in the video. To come here, it opens at 9 this time of year. This is April now, end of April. This time of year it opens at 9 during the week, and I think at 7 on the weekends. And it's a £2 entry fee. It's charitable, goes towards upkeep of the pier, so it's well worth paying. But the problem is, as I said, that because it doesn't open until 7 or 9 in those particular days, you can't really get onto the pier for the sunrise. And the reason you want to get onto this pier, obviously maybe to take some pictures of the sunrise here, but from the pier, that's where you get this perfect viewpoint of the old Swanage pier here. This is, you may have seen this, if you've ever searched for Swanage, you may have seen shots of this old pier with this old church behind it. It's a classic view that everyone's shot, but it's one of those views that you just got to get. It would be wonderful to get it at sunrise or even at sunset, but I'm not sure what time they close here, but I think around this time of year they close before sunset. Usually in the winter months is a better time to get it at sunset, or maybe you can talk nicely to the guys at the gate and they might let you stay on the pier for sunset. I'm certainly going to give it a try, but it doesn't look like today will be that day. It's forecast to be quite bad for the rest of the day. So I think that will definitely be done on another day. But when it's thick, cloudy and grey like this, then it's the perfect day for a long exposure minimalist shot. And that's what I'm going to go for now. So the fella at the gate did tell me that in the morning before they open the pier, you can actually walk around the back along that path there and come down onto the beach area here and get the shots of the pier. But the problem is, I think, is you're going to get the shot of the pier from this side, and it's going to be, you're going to get the new pier in the background. You're not going to get a clear shot of the old pier itself with nothing else behind it. So I really don't think it's going to work. And I think I've been over that way several years ago, and I think it was the same kind of problem. You either need to shoot it from the front here. It's nice to get an image of it from the front here. I did get that years ago. It wasn't a great shot. It was a few boats in the background, but still I got it. I'll stick that image up here now. But the problem you got this time of year is that they put the diving pontoon out. In the winter months, this is not there, but usually around this time they put it out, and it's here for the whole summer till October. So any kind of shots from the front this time of year are not really possible. But as I say, if you can get onto the pier here during the day, this is a great shot. So let me show you how I've composed it on the screen now. Okay. So I've set a 4:3 aspect ratio, which has framed up the old pier nicely and that old church there in the background. It's a classic composition. You've probably seen it a million times, but as I said, it's one of those things you just got to do yourself. So if you can see down here, I don't know if it's clear enough, but I've set the exposure compensation to +2 because I want to push the exposure as far to the right as possible. And expose to the right, overexpose to get that high key effect, because I'm going to convert it to black and white, and I want to basically get a nice bright image with all of the main details in, but none of the rubbish, so to speak. So a nice, clean, high key image that I can convert to black and white. The 30-second exposure will smooth out the sea and give you that kind of fine art minimalist effect. That's what I'm going for here. So the problem you get when it's windy like this is doing a long exposure, you need to make sure that everything is nice and sturdy. And even then, you can't be 100% sure that it's going to, you're not going to get any camera shake. Because basically, for a shot like this, I'm going to do a 30-second exposure. And in those 30 seconds, the camera mustn't move at all. If it does, your shot is ruined. So I got a Manfrotto tripod here. It's nice and sturdy. I've had it for a long time and it's nice and strong. It's never going to be any trouble. The Benro head is also nice and strong, so that's well tightened up. Everything's nice and sturdy. The camera's fixed on there, and I've got 2 case filters. Case filters are thick glass filters and they're really strong and sturdy, so there shouldn't be any movement there on the filters either. But to get the long exposure, I needed to use a 10-stop ND filter to darken everything down, and I've also got a 2-stop medium on there to pull back the brightness of the sky a little bit, so to balance out the exposure, to make it nice and even. And all of this is going to give me a nice 30-second exposure. Now that 30 seconds is also overexposed a little bit. Now I've overexposed it by 2 stops to brighten the whole image up, because basically I want to make a nice high key image that I can convert to black and white. Because what's really interesting over here is the old pier itself, all the wooden poles in the water, smooth out that water, get that church and a little bit of buildings in the background, and then everything else should be nice and bright to give that minimalistic feel. And that's how it looks really good in black and white. Now the other problem you got when you're on a pier like this, it's a wooden pier. So when you're doing a 30-second exposure, if anybody walks past you, it's going to bounce and your shot's ruined. So whenever you take your shot, always make sure that there's nobody coming either way, and hopefully you can try to anticipate that nobody will come past in the 30 seconds that you're exposing your image. So nobody's coming this way, and there's people far in the distance, but they've walked past me already and they're going the other way. So now I'm gonna try and take my shot. So if you can see, the water has been all smoothed out, and let's see how it looks on the big screen. So I decided to come over the other side and check out this view for myself, because on the way back out the guy said again, come over here, you know, come and check it out. So I decided to come around, and I'm actually glad I did, because although I'm correct in what I thought, that a lot of the pier would be backed by the new pier and wouldn't be such a great shot, a section of the pier is actually free from that, and you've got a lovely composition of one piece of the old pier there and old Harry cliffs and pinnacles in the background. Now it's actually starting to brighten up a bit too, and so I've managed to get yet another nice composition and a nice long exposure with old Harry rocks in the background. Now it's still quite bright, so still I've done a long exposure, overexposed it a touch to get a nice high key effect, which I'll convert to black and white. But this is really great. This means now for my workshop I've got two locations I can take people. We can get that shot from the pier, looking this way to that, most of that pier, old pier section, and that lovely, what I thought was a church, was actually, the fella on the gate told me that it's a piece of the old London Bridge that fell off many years ago and came here as a ballast on a barge, and that's what we're looking at now. So it's not a church, it's a piece of the old London Bridge. So that's interesting to know. So there's that view from the pier that I can take people to photograph, and I can also bring them around here to photograph this view, and it's also a potentially great sunrise location for a sunrise shot. So that's part of the reason I've come here, to scout these locations so I can bring people, I can have many different choices, many different places to bring people on a photography workshop. Problem with photography workshops is you can never guarantee what the weather's going to be like. And if you get a day like this, these are the kinds of places and the kinds of shots that you can do. It's never a total washout, even when the weather turns bad. So again, let me show you the composition quickly. So as I say, this time I've gone for a 16:9 aspect ratio, because the section of the pier that we're looking at is quite wide. So, and I want to include that part of the cliffs and the pinnacles of old Harry there, and a nice bit of sky there. So once again, I'm doing a 30-second exposure. I've overexposed it a touch, but not too much, because there's some nice interesting clouds here in the sky now, so I don't want to burn them out completely in this case. But again, I'll probably convert it to black and white too. So there you have it, a great scouting trip here in Swanage, and some great photos hopefully too, some nice black and whites. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a like, I'd really appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, check out some of my other videos, and I'll catch you later.